Games. Boards, games, and other games is what we're talking about. Boards, games, and LARPs. I'm not gonna shout. Chloe is over here and we're humming, and we are going to be talking about what Chloe is all about. But again, I say we are not gonna shout. We met at a place called Now Play This Design Camp, and that's a place that we decided to ramp up our friendship. Board games and other games is what we're talking about. Meeting Chloe Mashiter. I'm not gonna shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. It's 10 a.m. UK time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. And today we are meeting Chloe. Hello, Chloe.
Hi! What a song! Oh, that has started off my day in the best way.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear. And I'm having you on because we met each other at the design camp. We chatted. It's like, oh, you've got Nixophobia. I want to play Nixophobia. And it's like, hey, you make games. I make games. You like games. You like. And that was kind of taken for granted, given that we were in a place where we had decided to make games for an entire week and then go to Now Play This. But it was a wonderful experience. What were your main takeaways from that?
Weirdly, one of my biggest takeaways was something that, because it was themed around democracy, and so we had speakers from gaming and we had speakers from kind of the more democratic side of things. And I didn't think that the biggest thing for me was going to be the concept of participatory budgeting and community soups, which for anyone who doesn't know, because I had no clue about this, like about a month ago, a community soup is an event where basically you make a load of soup and you provide a load of bread and maybe some other food. People come, they pay typically a suggested donation of like £5 or $5. And it's everyone from like a given community. And then people can pitch what they would like to spend the raised money on to benefit the community. And then everyone votes. And then you just give the people the money to help them do the thing. And it really excited me. I've got, I'm talking to the person who did that talk with us next week to give me some advice, because I'm getting things in motion to like start organizing maybe like an initial little run to see if it's something that might be possible to do more sustainably, more for like kind of interactive theatre spaces and communities, because obviously that area is.
So you're trying to allow people within the interactive theatre community to have more of a say over the future of how everything should be guided, what projects they should be doing, what changes should be made?
Yeah, basically, so that, because at the moment stuff is happening, but obviously theatre was one of the industries, I mean, like all industries, but like very, very strongly affected by you know, the absence of live events and groups indoors and things, and especially like interactive theatre, where you're often like up close and personal with people. You can't necessarily fill an auditorium with 1,000 people like spaced out, maybe still must.
Yeah, the world really has changed.
Yeah, everything's kind of getting back on its feet. So it would be lovely to do something that it's kind of both the financial aspect of giving a bit of support to people, also the morale thing of saying like, we think what you're doing is worthwhile, so we're voting for you, and also the community aspect of helping to have like a semi-regular events where people can just meet, and it's not like a formal networking thing or anything like that, but it's still a lovely opportunity.
And it's about guiding the future of everything, and that's a lovely way to do it. And hello, Jay Foolsguard, it's lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us. And for me as well, participatory budgeting at Now Play This was such a big thing. And what really struck me was the D20 method of voting, where it's not just about positive thing, which we accept, okay, it's nice to vote for what you want, but also the negative side. Let's vote for what we don't want, because that facilitates discussion and it gets rid of the extremist viewpoints. And that is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's been really interesting doing research into different soups that are run and how different people run different ones, and the different.
And just to clarify, community soups, even though they can be an actual soup, we are usually talking about figurative soups, where the soups are a soup of ideas, of effort, of energy, of connections.
Yeah, I think it very, like, weirdly, in doing research, I found a lot more soup-based soups. Hi.
Hello, Josie.
I found a lot more actually soup-based soups in the UK than I realized. Like, there's one that I might go and see just how it works in Brighton in a month or so. So yeah, sometimes it's just the soup of ideas, and quite often it is like just people making soup or food. There's also a really nice thing, which is that some things use where if you bring some food to be able to share that with everyone else, you get like just a minute to speak. And that can just be about a thing that you're doing. Like, you might not be proposing or pitching anything, but you just get a minute to speak about like a thing you're doing or asking for some help and stuff like that. The more I learn about them, the more they seem like really wonderful ways of just help. Sounds really corny, helping people to help each other, but just giving people that point of connection.
Like, that is such a lovely thing. And so, yes, we met each other at Now Play This, and before we crack on with the rest of the show, there is a little biography running at the bottom, but what would you like people to absolutely know about you to contextualize this whole thing?
Useful context is probably I worked in theatre. I started off in theatre. Theatre was what I wanted to do when I was a kid. Even though, like, when I was 11, I was organising immersive murder mystery puzzle things at school. I hadn't realised what like tabletop roleplay gaming was or anything like that. So I discovered that basically about 6-7 years ago. So a lot of my thinking comes from either the fact that I worked in immersive and interactive theatre for many, many years and still do. And also, I think a lot of my thinking comes from the fact that I did philosophy at uni. So I think a lot in terms of like internal logic and structures and like worlds and stuff, rather than say in like acts and beats of a story.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, at this point, I would like to take a step back and talk about what we've been up to over the past couple of days. Let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So, my recent highlights is I drew a whole bunch of, I'm aiming for cute comical creatures, because this is a new edition, or whatever you want to call it, of a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some makes noises. But this is a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after some makes noises. So it's exactly the same game, just some people said that my whimsical creatures were a bit too scary or whatever for them. And these are all going to be redrawn, like with bright colors and thick lines. And so if you see any that you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's not cute, please let me know. So this was the last page I drew. I'm showing them in reverse order. Oh no, it turns out maybe not. This is the first page I drew. I just happened to draw 12 on a page. I don't know if like some of them, like the human heads, if that's a bit creepy.
I love the human heads. I think I like the fact that you have loads of kind of more abstract creatures, and then suddenly it's just a head with legs and arms.
But do you think it's creepy? Do you think it's still cute?
For me, yes. But I think I have quite like a... I will allow a lot of things within my scope of cute.
Like 4 of these have to be gotten rid of, and I will be getting rid of the bottom right one here. I think Finchy correctly said, yeah, the horns maybe make it less cute, and yeah, just, I mean, fish are cool, but fish are maybe less cute than birds and catsy type things and geometric shapes.
I wonder if it's also like about, because like top middle there looks, I think quite cute, but also like obviously like a very angry expression.
Mm-mm-mm.
So I don't know what other people's vibes are on like how looking angry or versus say smiling affects the cute vibes for them.
J Guard says the head is a little bit creepy.
I do agree with J God on this particular head. I don't know what it is about the ones on the previous page. I was like, definitely in the cute for me. This one, there's something, I'm not sure. They're rounded. Oh, they're more rounded, I think, is one of the things.
Yeah, you might be right.
Angular.
Josie says, I like this head as it reminds me of a 90s lead singer. But, maybe it's just not right for the cute comical creatures. Then I've got these. This was the third page I drew. I feel like these are generally...
These are all cute in my book.
Awesome. And then this is the fourth page. Yeah, there is another human head and a little squirrel-ish thing. Yeah, it's not...
I would rate all of these as cute.
And here, I decided these all have to have 2 mouths because I want to have a variety of stuff. And like the number of mouths can quite often mean that you make 2 noises just to show it's got 2 mouths. And I want there to be a good chance of, but like the third from the top in the middle, just the insect eyes and the jaggy beaks, does that make it creepy?
I'd say like it does look, I would say it's the creepiest of the page, though I've had like a thought on the one that's to the right of that. I wonder how many that look kind of creepy would start looking cute if you put hats on them.
That's a really good point. Maybe I should just put hats on everything.
There's something about just like a little hat, like a fez or something.
Yes, like a hat with a feather in it.
Yeah.
That is a really, really good idea. And here, these all have 3 mouths, and you might have noticed my thicker pen. I was outside, and it ran out of ink. So these are all with my thinner pen. But yeah, I think the fluffy ones feel more cute somehow, for sure. The one bottom left, because it's screaming, is that less cute, maybe?
It makes me think of the Cookie Monster, which for me is like a cute...
I'm gonna go...
Yeah, exactly. Like huge mouth ready for Cookie.
I do also wonder, when you talked about hats, would having shoes or spectacles, does that make them more cute?
Shoes, depends on the shoes. Like little wellies, absolutely, I think, would be more cute. Maybe Crocs as well. I reckon like very inoffensive, non-threatening footwear. Spectacles, I don't know. Yes, that's such a good suggestion. Just like one sock.
I love it.
I think, yeah.
Oops, and that is someone else. So that was the bulk of what I did yesterday. I also ordered a whole bunch of balloons that are going to arrive. My friend Finchy over there, who is helping me at UK Games Expo, and it's very exciting. I do want to read out the comments. So J Folsgard says, I played Wee Whimsical Creatures with a 5-year-old. It was absolutely fine, not creepy. Game was a hit. And Finchy agrees. I think the same. The kids all love the Wee Whimsical Creatures. That is lovely to hear. But there are some people who are just spreading this opinion on Board Game Geek, who are just saying the game is too creepy for them. And if that's you, I want to offer them an alternative. It seems like, if people are willing to pay me money for an alternative, I should make that game.
Absolutely, go for that.
So yes, that is the main thing I've been up to. And obviously part of what you've been up to is we met each other on Sunday, which was a lovely day out. But what have you been up to, Chloe? What were some of the games we played?
Well, we played this game, but with the less whimsical creatures, or like less deliberately cute ones. But that was really, really fun. We ended up doing like a lot of kind of improv-y things. We started doing like one-word stories, like one-line proverbs. I really enjoyed us doing just like improvised music, where one person is just doing something to say like a 4-beat, and then you just go around and each person starts adding something and then changing something.
And it's got very structured rules, so your bits can only be for like 4 beats long. And although we were kind of moving to making it 8 beats, so it was 2 bars, but that was fine.
Yeah, but that was really lovely. It's been a little while since I've done those kind of games in a group, because like I spent the rest of that day doing tabletop role playing, which is the type of game that I'm probably like most often found doing, just starting a new campaign, which is nice, which was very much a campaign made out of most of my friends are freelancers. All of the current games are just not happening because of availability. So I'm going to start doing just like an episodic campaign where people can drop in and drop out, just because that's what needs to happen in order to actually play at all. And it was really fun. And I was like nervous about running a game for the first time because it's been a little while since I've run a campaign. But it was silly. It was fun. I think I always really enjoy the very beginning of campaigns a lot, because you've got everyone so jazzed about their new characters and like describing them for the first time to the other players. And often with me, it starts with a lot of like kind of loose conversation of, okay, so who's been working here for a little while? Oh, you've been, okay, so you probably know this person. Okay, tell me a bit more about like what your office looks like. This sounds like it's a game that's just set, it's fantasy postal service. That's why people have offices and stuff. So it's still very like silly, fictional, magic-y, etc.
But it's got that sense of realism that you are in the postal office. I mean, that's quite unusual for a fantasy game, right?
I guess at the moment it doesn't feel, we haven't gone for the kind of realism of it hugely. I mean, everyone does have lanyards. And the person who arranges the lanyards has a cursor lithograph that always takes the worst possible picture of someone for the lanyard. So that's kind of like, I guess, where the realism has come in, is just those weird things. Or like the realism of, there's that person who works here, but you've not asked their name yet, or like they did tell you their name, or it's been a bit too long, and like, but then you just like push that further and further, and like by the end of the campaign, that's going to be some kind of like arcane horror of just this unknowable beast that grew out of your own social awkwardness. I think it's definitely fun to play with that stuff. One of the players recently started doing office work and has drawn a lot of inspiration for their character from people in that scenario. So it's those kind of aspects of realism.
I apologize. I don't know if you can hear my neighbours banging a wee bit. It is a wee bit annoying, but anyway, I'm glad you can't hear it. And I think there's something wonderful about mixing the fantastical and the mundane. Maybe that's why a hat is more cute. Like, you've got this fantastical creature and then there's a hat. Maybe more of them should be holding turnips or something. I don't know. Or like holding a little carrot. Maybe that's a bit phallic. Depends. Yeah.
I get what you mean though. It's nice to have something so bizarre, but with like one little aspect of something familiar that makes you go, wait, how do they kind of exist in my world, as well as being that different and bizarre and new?
Yeah, it's like the Mr. Men. I mean, they've got the phone and everything working, but then the actual creatures, they're vaguely humanoid. They've typically got 2 eyes and a mouth and 2 hands and 2 legs, although it's all kind of squished, like with a lot more geometrical, a lot more how a child would draw it, with the hands coming out of the head. But then the actual environment is fairly realistic by comparison. I don't know if you would agree. And then
I'd agree.
Then there's the books where they actually explore this. So it's not just them and their neighbors, but it turns out that they are actually living in our world, and then they interact with actual humans.
I didn't know that bit. Or if I did, I'd forgotten it by this point in my life.
I can't remember which ones it is, but there's like a couple where they just meet a farmer and then they help the farmer by Mr. Strong moving a truck or something.
See, the one that I know the most is Mr. Birthday. And that's solely because, at least when you're like in London, I discovered it's actually cheaper just to buy a copy of Mr. Birthday from like WH Smith than it is to buy birthday cards, because they are so expensive in London. For a short while, I did just like buy people copies of Mr. Birthday, because I don't really like birthday cards anyway. I'm not a big card person. So I would just buy them copies of that. And I did like always flick through, because there's something really joyous about it.
And speaking of joy, let's talk about things that make you smile, and let's talk about a brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant?
So absolutely anything that's making me smile, especially like right now.
Sure.
The TV show Barry is my vote.
I have never heard of this. Tell us about it.
So it's a show about a hitman who has to take out a hit on an actor in LA, and through doing that gets the acting bug and decides he wants to become an actor instead. And the show follows him as he's trying to manage both the like hitman side of his life and trying to wind that down or get out of all those relationships and difficulties, but also like build up his acting portfolio, try to connect with his emotions and things like that. And it can be really funny. It can be utterly emotionally devastating. It's a really interesting show, but also for me, it's so impressively structured. It is a show that has a huge amount of balls in the air that it manages to have payoff, and it keeps going in really satisfying ways.
It doesn't just let these things drop without resolution. You really feel satisfied.
They get more complicated and they get more gritty, and there are ways that people like might get out for a bit, but they're dragged back in, but it feels reasonable and natural. I mean, like as reasonable and natural as things feel within the setup of like hitman wants to become an actor. But it's just started its third season. And so I'm just really enjoying watching that. I'm finding this one, it still has so many like really funny moments, but a lot of it feels like they've kind of turned around, because the thing is, Barry, the hitman, is played by Bill Hader, who can be a very like charming, funny person. And it feels like the show's kind of gone, you all started to fall in love with Barry, didn't you? You started to excuse the things that he's done and the way he can be, didn't you? Okay, we're going to go in real hard on who Barry is and how broken and awful a person he can be. And you're going to have to grapple with that. Wow. I'm just really enjoying it. And
where do you see that?
Where do you see it?
Yes, is it on terrestrial television in the UK? Is it on one of the streaming services?
It's on a streaming service. I think it's HBO Max.
Okay.
So I think there are obviously ways to access that in the UK for anyone that really wants to.
So that sounds like quite a dark thing and potentially similar to Breaking Bad. I don't know.
I think it's lighter than Breaking. Like, thing is, I've never actually fully seen through Breaking Bad. I've also never been spoiled for it either. From what I can see of Breaking Bad is darker and harsher and more dramatic. Barry still has really silly, ridiculous vibes, and I think overall has a little bit of a lighter feel.
That's fair. Well, before we get to the next section, just a quick hello to Alex. Thank you for joining in. Lovely to see you. And let's move to the questionably quick questions is the next section. It's not an interrogation. It's just a questionably quick question section. What is the first game you remember playing?
Uno.
Did you play
I don't know if my answers are meant to be quick as well.
It is up to you. Meeples or figurines?
Figurines.
Books or podcasts?
Books.
What was the last one you finished?
I can't remember what it's called. It's about like how to structure your life to be happy. It's about designing your world and thinking in a specific way about happiness. I can't remember the name of it though.
Would you recommend it? I mean, is it something that you feel like you need to get and bring it to us to recommend? Not right now, but later on maybe.
Yeah, I would recommend it. I think it's a really interesting one for thinking about what does happiness look like and what is the best way to like practically guide yourself towards it.
Okay. Alex asks, would you rather have a meeple-sized duck or a duck-sized meeple?
A meeple-sized duck. That would be, it would be so cute. And you could easily, like, you wouldn't have to have a full pond. You'd be able to like give it a body of water that it needed. You could, yeah, absolutely, meeple-sized duck.
Almonds or avocados?
Avocados every day of the week.
Cute or whimsical?
I think I'm more of a whimsy person. To be honest, often for me, it ends up being neither. But if it's cute or whimsical, it's going to be whimsical.
Okay. What was the first game you worked on?
Oh, wow. That's a really good one. If we're talking game in like the broadest sense of the word, I think the first game I worked on was probably, maybe it was something called a beginner's guide to budgeting. I'm going to say that, but because that's basically, there was a night, I don't know if it still happens, that used to be basically run by a group called Arts Admin, live art performance night. And they had one that was themed around budgeting, around financial applications to the Arts Council and things like that. And what I pitched was a series of games that I could play with the audience. Some were skill, some were, you know, tactical, some were chance, etc. Some were physical, some were cerebral. Kind of Crystal Maze like setup of different styles they could pick. And I would gamble away my fee for the night, because it was basically like, this is, if you're talking about funding in the arts, this was me only like 2 years in and very, very cynical, I think. If you're talking about funding in the arts, let's do something that's about how so much risk falls on the artist financially. So,
wow.
And I had to have a chat with them because they weren't totally sure about, they needed to check that it was definitely okay, because I would potentially not be walking away with any fee for the night. But it was like, no, you're going to give me a fee, and then I am freely, willingly putting it in a situation where I might not have that. I ended up not even being able to do it, and I had to send a friend in lieu.
Why
so
not?
He did all of the things. I think I was stage managing that night. I think that was at the same time that I was doing like a placement at a theatre, and where I was working like every night by that point.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I am just in love with this idea. Like, it feels like it's really making a strong statement, and it would be fun to watch, which is like a brilliant combination of stuff.
Yeah, so I'd say that's the first one, though. When I worked with Secret Cinema from like 2012 to 2014, often I would be making up like my own little mini games. So for instance, during Brazil, I had a lot of different things on that, but I was often a lift operator, and I would just, because it was kind of in theme with Brazil, I would write permits, but the game was like trying to write the weirdest permit that was related to the people in the lift. So it would be like permission to have a beard that isn't yellow, or permit to think about the concept of horses, because they'd be talking about horses. And that would become a bit of a game, because people would see that I was just constantly, the game was also like, can I do this without stopping? Can I always be thinking of a slightly absurd thing?
So that was a game for yourself that you never shared with anyone else, but it informed your role as an actor.
Well, people, it was shared in that people could see the permits, because I was posting them all over the walls of the lift. So people would come in, they would see that this was like...
But they weren't privy to the rules of the game in the same way that you were. Like, it's kind of like the same way that for my colouring in game Drawn Together, like, you know, two of us were playing, and then, you know, there were other people who were affected by this because we went over and asked them to judge, but then they weren't privy to all the rules of the game. They weren't playing the same game.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's exactly kind of with this. So some people would like, there were ways in which people might kind of participate. Like they would obviously like try to contradict a previous permit or things like that. And so there were ways, but it was all about what could they do to make me do a thing. And they didn't fully know like what was the set of like parameters in my head. But I did a lot of things like that for individual shows.
It's really interesting. When you've got this set of strong rules for yourself, I can imagine it becoming almost like a black box where people are using you like a plaything and saying, okay, what can we do? What kind of outputs will we get based on our inputs? What comes out? And can we work out what's going on? And that could be a really interesting thing, because I read this book a while ago called Bullshit Jobs. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have heard of it, yeah.
And one thing that's mentioned is the appeal of being the cause rather than the effect. When you're like, wow, I'm the person moving my hands. When you're a small child, you're like, wow, these hands aren't just flailing around randomly. Yeah. Wow, I can move. Wow, I've got hands. And it's like, it's pretty amazing. Like when you think about it, like how we have this control, we take it for granted unless we're maybe inebriated or whatever. But the point being that playing a game, then it allows us to be the cause, to press the button and have things happen, to speak and have someone react to us, to color in something that then cascades into some scoring or into someone making a different judgment.
Yeah. That's really, I think, yeah, sorry, I could like talk for so long about agency in games and stuff, but I think you've hit on like a very core thing about being the cause of stuff feels often very, very good. And it's nice to create structures and stuff where people get to have fun with that.
Yeah, it feels like maybe we need to have you back on to talk all about agency. Secret Cinema, which productions did you work on?
Oh, okay. Shawshank Redemption, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, one of the Dirty Dancings, Back to the Future, The Secret Music with Laura Marling, a corporate gig that was Mission Impossible themed for Compare the Market for launching a new Spy Meerkat doll, Ghostbusters, Grand Budapest Hotel. What there's like at least like 3 or 4 others. I don't know if I can remember them right now.
Wow, I thought it was like a once a year thing that they had like this.
I think it's become that. Basically, the period that I worked on Secret Cinema stuff until like about 2014. The last one that I worked on was Back to the Future, and I basically worked on pretty much everything that was happening 2012 to 2014, end of 2012 to 2014. And Back to the Future was the first one where they had like 3,500 people a night was the capacity for the show. Before then, the highest I think had been Brazil, which was about 1,500 a night. But that was like 16 floors of a huge tower block in East Croydon that's been used for films like Batman Begins, maybe, or at least one of the notable ones. But a lot of them, like Miller's Crossing, like Shawshank Redemption, etc., were only about 400 people. And so they were still kind of like felt big because you could get lost in like very cool sets and stuff. But they were nowhere near the scale of the stuff that is currently done. And so often, there would be, like 4 or 5 things a year, but some of them would be, this is a thing that's happening. Like the Ghostbusters run, I think, was quite short. Oh, Saturday Night Fever, that's another one. It was like a very different scale of production.
And I got an opportunity to go to one of them because someone that I was dating was an actor, so I managed to get free tickets, which was amazing. To the Star Wars one. I can't remember.
I went along to that one as an audience. I've been to like a few as an audience member since.
And for those who are unfamiliar, you get told, oh, please dress up a particular way or have something in your mind. And it's meant to be an immersive theatre production. You play a character. And for this particular thing, I wandered around. There was the land speeder car that moved around at one point. I got locked into a jail, but they deliberately left the door open so I could just leave, because you don't want someone to be bored actually in a jail. That would be really bad. But then there was like some sort of gambling game, although not with actual money, with some sorts of cards. And then we all filtered into the screening. There were multiple screens like in front of each other, which was really interesting. And at each point, at certain key parts, someone would act out part of that. And it's really interesting what it's become. To wrap up the questionably quick question section, firstly, J Fool's Guard, we will absolutely do that once there's a vote, and I think we're both into chatting about that, Chloe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And Finchy asks, what is your go-to game to play with people you don't know?
Depends on the context. Like a game that I love introducing to people, and then you kind of can play it with them because you just send them your responses. Like I have a few text chains with people, is a game I have, which is, there are 2 variants, daytime and nighttime. And it's, that dog has just been doing extreme sports, or that dog has just broken out of cyber jail. And it's just a game where if you see a dog in daytime that's in one of those like harnesses, then that dog has just got back from doing some extreme sports. And you've got to kind of like look at the dog and just be like, oh yeah, that dog was doing like the kind of sandboarding in the dunes, or that dog really wants to do skydiving but is a bit scared, so it went to one of those like tube places where you can just fly for a bit. And I have a lot of friends who send me stuff where they're just like, I just saw a dog who got back from whitewater rafting. And so the nighttime.
So it's kind of like an asynchronous game where you're just kind of sending images and saying what you imagine this dog might have been doing.
Yeah, well, like I've never been sent images. I've been sent like lots of descriptions of the dogs.
Oh.
And the nighttime one is where you see the dogs with the light up collars, because that means they've just broken out of like a futuristic cyber jail, and you've got to guess what the dog was in there for, and maybe like how or why it broke out. I think I quite like light games like that. But if I was like, I'm going to play a tabletop role-playing game with people who
let's say we were all in this room or in your room where you are, everyone here, so there's 8 of us. We can split up into groups, but there's 8 of us in your house right now. Everyone's behaving themselves. What would you suggest we play? We're there for 2 hours. We might chat. We might have a drink. What would you suggest we play?
If we're there for like 2 hours, my first thought, because I don't necessarily have like go-tos. I've done a lot of convention play and running stuff for different groups and different types. For some reason today, my brain is going Boy Problems, which is a lasers and feelings hack about performing a heist on the 200 songs that apparently Carly Rae Jepsen has in a vault. And it's simple setup. It's fun. It's got some nice kind of like individual character goals as well as like general ones. So I think that's also just like a mood thing. If everyone was like, we want something more intense, then I'd be like, sure, we've got Jenga, we can do Dread. So I think things like that are what coming to mind.
Yeah, I like the sound of Dread. I mean, I'm really keen to play it. I've not tried it. I mean, I'm not big on horror, but I would definitely be down for that. So maybe, everyone come to Chloe's house. And
Nyctophobia, Dread, just all of like the scariest games that I have.
Wow. Like if you were to make a horror-themed afternoon, evening, day of gaming, what else would be in there?
I think 10
Would
Candles
you want would you try and source some creepy creatures, like to make a game about creepy creatures and trying to identify them after some makes noises? Or is that
with
not horrific?
Like with creepy creatures, where my head goes is like you have a game of creepy creatures, but it's the noises that are made in their wake.
Like
you never hear the creatures directly. What you hear is the aftermath, and you have to guess like the horrific aftermath that is left behind these creatures if you're trying to go like fully creepy with it.
That is dark. See,
the thing is, like, I don't think of that as grim. I just go like, oh yeah, because I like my last year of uni, I did a show called Zombie Haiku, which was there's a book called Zombie Haiku. Thoroughly recommend it. It's a lovely, funny book. It's designed as though it's a haiku diary that someone's keeping, but they get turned into a zombie during the zombie apocalypse, but they keep writing the diary as a zombie. And the pages get more bloody and more dirty and stuff. As you go through, it's got like pictures and it's very visual. And I devised a theatre piece about it. And a lot of that was like me as a student really noisily eating meat in front of my laptop's microphone so I could get good sound effects, and like crunching polos and recording it to get like bone sounds. And so I still have a lot of like creepy noises. I have an album called
Sounds
Vegetable
amazing.
Murder.
Like just the amount of like I don't know whether to call it illustration, but like the amounts of effects and like mark making that must have gone into making that. Zombie ASMR, says Alex. And I feel like there's a good demand here to actually play the game of what noises are left in people's wake.
I'd be really curious. Yeah.
I had a few questions that I thought we'd get to. I feel like even though the questionably quick question section has officially finished, if we could rush through these.
Yeah, sure.
Firstly, what are you passionate about in life? Obviously, theatre and games is up there, but what else would you say really gets you going?
Building communities, creating environments where people can play together, can spend time together, often also especially communities with like big queer representation, and welcoming to kind of queer people of all forms. But yeah, there's something about, especially something I really adore is introducing people to games and to play. And the times that I've run games or events where people have like had that first experience of role playing a character, or being like, I can actually, if I just, I can kind of do anything within this world, and then going ham on like the descriptions and really throwing themselves into it. That's the thing that I'm very passionate about. Yeah.
I can hear the passionate for self-expression, whether that's in a fictional world or in real life. And having met you, you've got sometimes awesome jewelry. And I think the first day that I met you were wearing a wig, and then it was like a day later or 2 days later, I was, oh, That was a wig. That wasn't your actual hair. So I was slightly disappointed. Yeah. But, you know, it was...
I think everyone at camp was. I was like, I'm going to do this. And I had the energy to do my wig for the first 2 days. And then it was just like, this camp is already wiping me out. I don't have the energy to like do wig setup every morning.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Hello, Yoda. Lovely to see you.
I'm also passionate about, I'm just going to quickly say, knitting, baking, and Norfolk, which is my home county, which I love dearly. So, yeah.
You like the Great British Bake Off?
It's all right. When I say baking, like for me, it's more getting to do it than
I do understand
other people
that.
do stuff.
I mean, like, I love dancing,
it.
but I'm not big on watching other people dancing. Just, you know, wanted to give a shout out to Kim Joy, who was, parts of Aircon and is kind of part of the board gaming community and has like a little board game, Kim Joy's Magic Bakery, which is quite cool.
That is incredibly cool. Yeah, got a lot of time for Kim Joy.
Yoda says, for a second there, I thought roll, flip, draw were the pronouns, and I got confused.
That's kind of fair. The way that I put it in, it's fair. And yet, like, it is flat, but you've got the Broads, you've got C, you've got Norwich Market, you've got the ridiculous, beautiful dialect. Like, I just have a lot of time. You've got Norwich, which has different busking rules to most cities. So actually you don't need a permit. You can just go busk. And it means that we have a very bizarre array of buskers and stuff. So there's loads of really specific things I really like. This
is betraying my terrible geography. So I didn't realize that Norwich is part of Norfolk.
It's the biggest, I assume it's the biggest city in Norfolk. It's what I think of as like the capital of the county.
And Yoda says, just to clarify, you don't have to defend anything from being flat. I mean, flatness is good, especially if you want to cycle around.
Yeah.
And but yes, Norwich, Diceni, lovely place, lovely to be there. Let's talk about game making. You've talked about how you got into mass market games, and there was a bit of theatre, and through theatre you wanted to make this statement and just play around with the audience and play a beginner's guide to budgeting. But were you already a playful person? Were you always really into games and playing things? Was your theatre always on the kind of pervasive interactive side?
I think so. Like in terms of always being a playful person, I've just seen in the comments, actually it's the smallest city in Norfolk. Is it maybe the only?
Yeah, that's what.
Yes.
It's the only city, so it's also the smallest city.
Only city. It's fair. But yeah, in terms of playfulness, like, I mean, I was as a kid really into theatre. I would also I remember I would make like miniature summer fairs in my back garden with like Splat the Rat and bric-a-brac stalls and games, and like get my grandparents to like come to my fair. Insufferable child. And it was when I got to like, thing is, I was like really fixed on like, I just want to like be good at acting and stuff. And I played like games, like me and my friends did those murder mystery evenings when we were like 16. And I remember having a lot of fun with those. But I think it was only when I went to uni that I was like, I'm not going to be a professional actor. I didn't get into drama school. I'm going to audition for stuff, but I don't really care about it as much. And when I stopped caring, I did better. And it was where I started like getting into kind of devised bits and pieces and learning about like rough theatre and medieval theatre. And I think there's always been like quite a degree of playfulness in what I like to do. Though part of it is, I'd say that my career has been quite like, a bird going after shiny things. because I would have like worked with this company and been like, oh, that's really cool. Okay, I want to find more stuff like that. Or, oh, these people are doing this thing. Right,
I mean, I
I'll
must
apply for
admit,
that.
I'm kind of envious of like all the things that you've gotten to do. It sounds amazing.
It's very like yeah. I feel
But
massively like fortunate.
I have to admit, like yesterday, I was like, oh my gosh, all I have to do for the next day, like week is, yeah, I've got to sort out some payments, but basically all I've got to do is draw some stuff and then go to a convention. Like, it's wow, my life is amazing, and I get to just draw stuff and put stuff together. I'm like massively privileged now. But you it sounds like you were always making games, like making games for your grandparents as a wee bairn, and like I definitely associate with that. But now that you've done so much, because you've done interactive theatre, murder mysteries, everything, what are you most proud of, would you say?
Oh God, that's a question, isn't it? Wow.
You knew it was coming up.
I know, but you always kind of go like, oh, I'll cross that bridge when I think of it. To be honest, I think in terms of being proud,
You should be proud to have met me.
I mean, yeah, like first
yeah,
off,
obviously.
proud to
Being
meet
here on this stream is the highlights of your. No, actually, I don't want you to say that. That would be incredibly sad.
But
and I genuinely hope it isn't. I know it isn't. But even though it was lovely to meet you at Now Play This, even for me, I wouldn't call it proud. It's not the highlights of my life. I have to admit, Chloe, meeting you was not the highlights of my life. I'm sorry.
I can't believe that. How very dare you?
But maybe, like, who knows what the future might hold? Maybe in 20 years' time, I will be like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
This was the time when everything went uphill.
I think in terms of pride, the thing that I kind of like keep honing back in on, because there's so many things, and there's a lot of things where I go and I'm like, oh, I'm really like happy that I did that, or I feel really good about doing that. I've done quite a lot of work in either running games at events for people who've never played games before, or for like new groups or groups of strangers. I've done a fair bit in terms of like taking stuff to the Edinburgh Fringe where people were playing, say, Dungeons and Dragons, which was often, for a lot of them, if they were playing that for the first time, it was their first tabletop game. And also like running and coordinating some gaming jams where people were making tabletop role-playing games for the first time. And I think a lot of like my like proudest moments are to do with when I can kind of look at something and be like, that event that I organized, in Shoreditch Town Hall, where people got to like come and play games and then chat about games for the rest of the day. That was the first time that person played tabletop, and they now
kind
like,
of reaching new people
games.
and bringing people in and expanding people's horizons.
Yeah, and there was some stuff also that like kind of makes me very proud, was doing like live like tabletop gaming shows a few years back, often like monthly and stuff, and with like quite a predominantly queer group, and occasionally some of the things that were relayed to me from audience members about, I know that was a space where some people, they used like new pronouns for the first time because it felt like a safe place where they felt okay doing that. It was a place where they wore like more femme clothes for the first time, or things like that. And that also like just makes me feel proud, because like how can you not feel great about being able to have that kind of impact and hold that space for someone. So I think, yeah, all like being able to introduce people to games, being able to give people like a positive experience of playing for the first time, and feeling proud about like being able to handle new players sometimes. Like I once ran a game for 3 young boys, 2 of whom were friends who had never played before. I think they were all about like maybe 10, and one of whom had played before quite a lot but didn't know the others. And the one who had played before a lot, turned out he had a lot of homebrew rules about like bloodlust, and if like he successfully hit anything, he would start like rolling his own wisdom saves to be like, am I just going to try and hit everything? I've got bloodlust. And trying to like, I do feel quite proud of looking back on that and going, I managed to not shut that kid down, managed to avoid his character trying to decimate these 2 new players who were just having fun, like sharing a bottle of potion so that they could both have half an hour of its effects rather than just one of them having an hour of its effects, because they were adorable. So like those kind of things. And yeah, they like a lot of it's like small individual moments, I think, rather than, I don't know if there's like one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's a key thing. Like when you're talking right at the start about participatory budgeting, it's not about one grand idea. It's all about little things coming together and having that balance. And it feels very similar here. You're building a community. You've got like all those tiny things. And for me, if I looked back, I would say, yeah, you know what? If I had to look at one project, it would be the LDEC, but that's kind of cheating because it facilitates so many different games, if you know what I mean, and that covers so many experiences. So it's almost like we think, well, I'm proud of my life, ha ha ha, like kind of the all-encompassing stuff. But no, I totally get what you mean, and that makes a great answer. We are running out of time. I did write that we would talk about what makes a good story and what makes a good RPG. I think that could be like 2 more episodes, but if you've got like one sentence
on what makes a good story, I have a thing. My theory about stories are descriptions of change, and it's about how interesting that change is. Do you have multiple things changing at the same time in comparing contrasting ways? Saying that yesterday a banana was in my kitchen and it was green and today it's yellow, that's technically a description of change, but you know why that's boring because it's predictable and it's not really saying anything more. Stories are descriptions of change. Good stories are interesting descriptions of change.
I mean, you say that, but I'm actually intrigued now by the banana, just like by the mundanity. But maybe that's because there's a curiosity gap. Now I'm like, yeah, that's instantly relatable. Now I want to know, like, did they eat this banana? But me, Alex says, today my banana was translucent. Oh, this sounds like it's going Kafkaesque. I like that. I could totally, I mean, yeah, to be fair, if that was the entire story, yeah, that would be a bit rubbish.
If that's the full
like,
story.
As it starts, I like this. And I could totally imagine writing a story about like 1 week in this banana where it turns translucent and then, you know, for some reason the banana starts pouring out the person and it's just all sorts of weird.
That's interesting. That's like interesting, unexpected change that makes me curious that like I haven't seen with a banana before. So that's my personal theory about stories.
So you need interesting change and unexpected change.
It's either got to be interesting and unexpected change or change that is presented in an interesting and unexpected perspective.
Okay, so either the facts or the execution.
Personally, that's where I at least.
I love that theory. Point. I feel like we could dissect it more. Let's not right now. But do you have such an amazing little nugget for RPGs?
What makes a good RPG?
Yes.
I don't know if I do.
Do you think
the thing that comes to mind feels like a cop-out as a designer, because I feel confident that me and my friends could play any RPG and it would be fun because of being with my friends. It would feel good because of the people I was with. And if it didn't feel good, we would stop playing it and we'd find another one and then it would feel good. Yeah, I need to come up with a snappy theory for RPGs as well. I can work on that one.
Well, it's been a delight to have you on, and hopefully have you on in the not too distant future. I think we already talked about another date that might work for us.
Yeah, I think in a couple of weeks.
Yes,
and
indeed, in exactly 2 weeks.
And Jay Foolsguard, I mean, that's a interesting characters and or narrative. It definitely needs that. So then we could have such a chat about like what makes an interesting character. There's a lot to get into. So good thing we've got more time.
So at this point, I always like to say to invite a guest, if I have one, to ask me a question, because I've asked you lots of questions. Now you get to ask me whatever you would like, and also ask the same question of everyone watching. So what would you like to hear people answer? Question of the day. Question of the day. It's a little question before we go on our way. Question of the day.
I know that after this, I'm going to think of loads more questions and wish that I'd asked them, but because it's what's in my head, and because you mentioned Bake Off, what is your favorite competitive TV show? It just has to have a competitive element to it, but what is your favorite? And chat as well, what's your favorite?
Yes, that's a really good question. What's your favorite competitive TV show? Okay, I've got two that I saw on Netflix quite recently. Okay. One is called Is It Cake? So basically, it's about people. I've only watched 2 episodes, but it always makes me smile and feel energized and just so happy. And it's them baking things and trying to make a handbag. Well, trying to make a cake that looks like a handbag. And then other people try to tell whether they can tell which one is the cake in this sea of handbags. And if the majority of the judges manage to guess which one it is, then they lose, and that's basically it. And also it's like, oh, which one of these fast food items is actually not a hamburger, but it's a cake? And then they bring down this giant sword, and just the energy of the presenter, it's brilliant. The other one that I want to say, I'm going to actually look at the thing. Alex says Taskmaster. That is a good shout.
Love Taskmaster.
So yes, a competitive TV show is something where someone wins. And so it might be a game show. It might be that you've got some amount of money. It doesn't need to be, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think your intention was necessarily that there's team versus team. It just has to be, there has to be some elements of winning. So who wants to be a millionaire?
Yes, some element of competition that's like built into the show.
Absolutely, Eurovision would count.
Fully count Eurovision. That's a very good shout. What was your second one, Bez? You said there were 2 in your head.
Yes, I couldn't remember the name of the other one. So actually, if you talk about your favorite one for a moment, I will find the name for you.
I mean, like, I'm a big fan of Taskmaster. In terms of like classic kind of TV contest, I'm a big fan of Blown Away, which is glass blowing, but that's just because of like the horrible part of me. It's very rare to have other like competitive making shows where someone could entirely break the thing that they've made by accident in the final like 5 minutes. And Blown Away, because it's glass blowing, that does happen. But it's also just really impressive and really different. And some of the stuff people make is just really bizarre and really cool. So I think that's currently my. I think that's. Sorry, I'm just going to sneak in very quickly. Lego Masters. There's like a few different franchises of it. There's an Australian one, there's an American one, and it's people like building the best things out of Lego. But it's like the best thing to blow up, the best thing to be underwater, the best moving thing, and it's so much fun.
That is awesome. My second thing is called Bullshit. I wasn't sure whether I want to say what words I want to say on this show. it's the call. Actually, I'll just say the title, even though they've got an asterisk for the I. It's Bullshit, the TV game show. And it's a very American thing. There's one person who's answering questions, and they click the answer. They know whether they got it right or wrong, so it immediately lights up green or red. And if it's green, they're getting through to the next round no matter what. Eventually, they will win £1 million if they get through to the very end. But if they get it wrong, then they've got a chance to get through to the next round anyway. And at that point, you might talk to the 3 people who are trying to be the next contestant and explain why it was totally the correct answer. So whether it was correct or whether it was wrong, they have to explain, yeah, this is the correct answer, and this is how I knew it, or whatever. And then the 3 people in the panel, what they're trying to do, they're playing a completely different game where they're trying to be accurate. So when someone's correct, they want to say they're correct. When someone's wrong, they want to say they're wrong. And they want to see through their guise and see through the facade. And the person with the highest percentage gets to be the next contestant. And then the next contestant, there's marginally more to it than that. There's like 3 locks during the game, which is also a really interesting design choice. But it feels like one of those things that probably wouldn't work as a tabletop game where you didn't have massive amounts of money on the line, but it feels like actually maybe it would. It feels like it's a lot more interesting than Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, because it feels like actually this is something that could be really easily adapted as a card game or as a board game or whatever.
That sounds really cool. I need to go watch that show.
I think Alex is shocked and is offering me the ban hammer to ban myself because of my swearing. And is saying, if you're a Taskmaster fan, Alex Horn did an interview about the design of the show on the Fun Problems podcast, which I agree is worth a listen. It's a great show. Fun Problems, worth a listen. So thank you for the question of the day, Chloe. That was a pleasure. And at this point, I ask everyone, over to you. What are you up to? You can share personally if you want to. Whether it's something fun and frivolous, something super serious, something you want to do, something you're excited to do, or something you're bored and have to do, let me know. Feel free to share. I promise I care. I am personally going to make sure that I get outside. I've already been outside today, so I had a quick walk around the block. It's probably not good weather for drawing in the park, unfortunately. There was a tiny bit of drizzle when I went out earlier. It is very cloudy. It's kind of dark. And I would say, sure, if this was the color of chocolate, we would not call it dark chocolate, but it's all relative. I mean, considering that it's meant to be daytime, it is very dark. I am basically going to be drawing and finishing the things for 2 different games, a bunch of cute comical creatures, and also a bunch of items for a game about stuffing balloons as a team without speaking. But it's a card game. There are no actual balloons. Hello, Xate. It is lovely to see you. Xate says, I am working personally, totally not listening to Twitch at the same time. Yep, absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And Alex, going to make myself a cup of tea, do a bit of work, then take the kids for a little bike ride after school. Sounds lovely. And Chloe, what are you up to?
I am going to go and donate a load of stuff to charity shops because I've been trying to clear stuff out, and I've had this box of things in my flat for a good couple of months. So I'm going to do that. Then this afternoon, I'm going to go to a theatre jam, which is a thing I've never been to before, but a friend is facilitating one, and I'm curious to see what the space is like and what it feels like when you just kind of go to a load of people. No pressure, just, explore and see what happens. So gonna see what happens at a theatre jam.
That sounds lovely. And now, as always, I like to recap and wrap up before we finish up. So we had a wee chat about participatory budgeting and how that could be introduced to theatre folk. We talked about cuteness, that maybe having certain shoes like wellies, maybe 1 sock, not 2 socks, but just 1 sock, and all sorts of hats would be good. We talked about Barry, the TV show, about books. Actually, while I'm doing this recap, could you get that book and tell us what it is? Because this is when we said that you would get it to the recommendation. We talked about the Beginner's Guide to Budgeting, which was a game that Chloe invented for the theatre folk. We talked about working for the Secret Cinema 2012 to 2014, about having a certain bunch of rules for yourself, and a bunch of like bringing about agency, about horrific games, about communities, about baking and knitting and Norfolk, about introducing newcomers to the world of RPGs, allowing self-expression. A good story is a description of change where the facts or the presentation are interesting or surprising. And RPGs, kind of cops out, but it's all about the people around the table. And then we had a quick chat about competitive TV shows.
And this, get my mic again. This is the book that I've found really interesting, Happiness by Design by Paul Dolan. It's not a hugely thick one. And it's just it's interesting in that it's not kind of going like, be mindful. It's going, here's like some stuff you can fill out. Here's some things you can think about. Here's how you could try to actually like just design the space around you or your life to make yourself just more likely to veer in the direction of happiness, without having to like overhaul habits. How just make yourself more likely to be happy. So it's kind of interesting.
That sounds really cool. And yep, J Fool's Guard agrees, and J Fool's Guard, for the record, is getting ready for a design playtest weekend coming up. That sounds fantastic. I hope you have a lovely one. So for now, if people want to find me, then you know that I am Stuff by Bez everywhere, on Twitch, Twitter, Big Cartel if you want to buy my stuff, and YouTube for the old episodes. And of course, if you want to join my Discord, then it is stuffbybez.com/Discord, which will redirect you to that place. Streams coming up. You can check out the streams coming up on that link. And tomorrow I am chatting to Jessica Medringham. We're going to be doing a quick catch up with each other. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I will be basically in Herefordshire for a charity event. Well, Thursday I'll be going after the thing. I might be streaming potentially from the train station, or maybe just a quick thing about, I might show you my latest game, which is meant to arrive late tonight, which is quite exciting. I think I just got to message Randslori can't come, but and then I will be recapping that event afterwards. But for now, if you want to check out Chloe, there is a wee link in the chat. But where would you like to be found, Chloe?
I'm most easily found on Twitter, at Chloe Mashiter. There's also, one of those is my like kind of theatre-y website that has stuff about the interactive theatre stuff that I do, the creative tech that I do for like remote shows, etc., etc. And then there's my itch page, which is where I have a whole host of different tabletop role-playing games. Also, if you go to my Twitter, I will update it like today. You can sign up to a mailing list, and normally I send out mailing lists about monthly with just new releases, often early and discounted releases. And if I don't have something to release, you will definitely be getting like a recommendation of 4 like games that I have enjoyed that are worth checking out and things like that.
Why 4? Is that just the number that you decided? 4 is.
It's just normally like around 3 or 4.
Okay, it's just where that's how many things you feel compelled to share.
Yeah, and it feels like that's enough to kind of be like, are you in a card game mood? Are you in a solo TTRPG mood? Are you in a group game mood? Sometimes, some months I do go, oh God, what do I can't think of any new games. But normally after like a little moment, I kind of calm down and I go, no, oh, there was that thing I played.
Well, please, everyone, share, spread the word, and I want to say thank you, everyone. Might have, I think Michael might be streaming. We'll have a quick read. Alex says, I would like to be found in the list of Spiel des Jahres winners, which unfortunately can't be found there yet, but I know how you feel. That would be fantastic. So, as always, thank you to everyone who's joined in the conversation. Thank you to anyone who's watching after the fact. Feel free to put your comments below. And most importantly, thank you to Chloe.
Thank you to Bez. Wait, which way do I have to? There, that way. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone in chat. This has been really lovely.
So, just looking who is... Chill Rob. Let's go to Chill Rob, who is doing some tunes and loops. And Xate says, I can just add you into that list, no problem. It's all a matter of good Photoshop skills or editing skills. I mean, yes. I mean, it depends where the list is. Like, if it's just a photograph of the wrist, yeah, that's easy to change. But anyway, I'm not going to... what is this actually happening? Are we get... So, if you are following the raid, then please chill Rob. We're going to go and stream for now. The only thing left for me to say is lots of love and bye 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye Alex. Says bye bye J Fool's Guard. Bye bye Xate. Lots of love. Bye.